I was really sort of friends with all the little bookworms and, the really weird kids, which was fine because, I didn't mind. But it was just in between classes, going to class, first getting to school, kids would come up to me, just taunt me about anything, really, but they'd call me a homo, they'd call me gay, and probably fourth form would have been my lowest point. A lot of things happened throughout that year. Bullying got really bad. You'd go to class and you'd be sitting in class, the teacher would be up the front of the class and have to go out to do something, and I didn't actually realise it, but the whole time we'd been in class that period, people had been just getting things out of their pencil cases, cutting them up in half, and as soon as the teacher walked out, everything started flying my way, and at one point there was even like a pair of scissors and a compass, and I remember that sort of freaked me out. I just, took off and walked out of class and didn't go back. I had discovered gay.com and I was in a chat room talking to someone, and they were up from Wellington for the weekend, and we ended up spending quite a bit of time together. And then the day came when I was sitting in the back of his car with one of my friends, and he sort of said that he and his flatmate were returning back down to Wellington and told me to go with him, or rather asked, and I thought about it, and we drove round to my mum's place, and Mum asked me what I was doing as I was loading up pillows and clothes into his car, and I told her, and I said, I'm moving to Wellington. She goes, what about school? And I said, no, I'm leaving. We got into a big fight over that, and I just sort of said, you can't stop me, and jumped in the car, and then 4.5, 5 hours later, I was down in Wellington.
How old were you?
Left everything behind, 15. When I got down there, the main thing I sort of felt was probably relief. Like it felt like I could finally relax, even though it was in a house full of random strangers I didn't even know. Within maybe about 2 or 3 weeks, I'd got a job at Macca's, McD's, serving burgers, and I'd found a flat and I'd moved out and I was doing things for myself. Lasted about 6 months. I basically had sort of like a mini panic attack and sort of freaked out and just sort of thought, well, I don't really want this for myself. I called up my mum and she came down to Wellington and basically saved my ass and then took me back up to New Plymouth.
Friends at that stage when you came back?
No, I had none. The 1 or 2 people at school who didn't mind my company, they had moved their separate ways because they were still all in school, and so they had their friends and I was sort of like the dropout. The friends that I did have, they were Catholic, and when I had sort of come out to them, I lost all contact. It was a Friday or a Saturday night or something, and I was hanging out at a friend's house, and I don't know, I think we'd been drinking, and I don't know what happened, and I can't tell you what I was thinking about, but something just sort of clicked, and I grabbed scissors, I grabbed compasses, I basically grabbed anything sharp and started trying to hack away at my wrists, and luckily, I had a friend there that just kept taking everything off me. The next thing, my mum came round and grabbed me and sat me down and just sort of started blaming herself, and was at that point when she was sitting there and I could see how upset that she was and how she was taking responsibility, that I'd realised what I'd done. Over the last sort of couple of years, my support network is growing quite a lot. I did a lot of moving around. Looking at the last 10 years, I've lived in Wellington, Hamilton, Tauranga, Auckland and New Plymouth on various occasions. And I guess it was just that feeling when you'd get somewhere and you'd realise that it didn't matter where you were, you still felt the same, and you still had that, that emptiness. All I wanted was to be liked, and throughout all my experiences over that amount of time, I never felt like I met anyone who was genuine and someone that really actually cared. I feel like I know where I'm going in life, and in my teenage years and when I was at school, I really wasn't a pleasant teenager to be around from my mother's point of view, and I know that she wouldn't say that. She's always just been such a big sort of pillar of support and just accepted me for who I am. And now I find that my workmates do the same and my friends do the same, and I've never sort of really had that before.
So still a mum's boy?
I'll always be a mum's boy.